So I was shoveling snow on Wednesday. Have you been shoveling snow lately? But the sun was actually shining on Wednesday. And so it was such a gift to be outside and to feel the sun on my face after all the gloom that we've been having. I think winter can be really isolating. You know, it's kind of cold, and so the cold keeps us sort of rushing from our car to our house, and we don't even a lot of times touch base with our neighbors. It's the snow actually that brings us outside and that helps us to reconnect with our neighbors. And so that really is one of the blessings of the snow. But during my snow shoveling, I had a nice conversation with my neighbor because she was out shoveling as well. In our conversation, she was telling me a story about her granddaughters, and it was a story from when they were younger. They're older than this now. But she was talking about a time when she was driving in the car with them, and they were listening to music. She couldn't remember what kind. She thought maybe it was a CD of hymns or something. But they were listening to music, and she looked into the back of the car to see these two little girls with their heads leaning on each other. And the youngest one had tears just streaming down her little cheeks. And she said, "Oh, honey, what's wrong?" And this sweet little girl said, "Nothing, Mimi. I'm just feeling the music." Feeling the music. Her mother said that this little child was often moved to tears by music. Music has a way of speaking to the depths of our hearts. We just listened to Bono sing a little bit of Psalm 40, and this is a popular song that U2 would use to close a lot of their concerts. I've included a link in the Bible app, and there's a link on our website too, if you want to access it from there, to a little short documentary about a meeting in which Bono and Eugene Peterson got together to talk about the Psalms. Now, Eugene Peterson is a theologian and an author, and he is the person who wrote the Message Bible. And so they got together to talk about their love of the Psalms. So the interviewer that was talking with them asked them to first recall their first impressions of the Psalms. And so as Bono was talking, he recalled first being exposed to the Psalms as a kid in the Church of Ireland. In his recollection, he said that he could remember thinking, "Wow, great words. Too bad about the tunes." But he fell in love with this idea of words and melodies and the way that they inform each other. He spoke about appreciating the Psalms for their raw, brutal honesty about joy and about sorrow and about confusion. The book of Psalms is a songbook. It's kind of like a playlist, like an ancient playlist, if you will, of sung prayers that span the gamut of emotions, responses to a variety of situations. There are psalms that celebrate the goodness of God, the deliverance of God, the closeness of God, the love and the relationship with God. But there are also psalms that express frustration at the perceived absence of God, anger that God had not provided the answers or the help or the healing or the justice that was desperately needed. In this interview, Eugene Peterson said he started translating a psalm for a friend. He wanted this friend to understand that prayer was not about us being nice before God, but that prayer was about us being real. It's about honestly expressing our truth. In the book of Spirituality of the Psalms, Walter Brueggemann talks about the Psalms in three different categories: Psalms of orientation, Psalms of disorientation, and Psalms of new orientation. Now, Psalms of orientation are psalms that praise God for all the things that are going right, thanking God for abundant blessing, expressing joy. Psalms of disorientation express anger and frustration, confusion when God just didn't act the way the psalmist had expected. How long? do we have to wait? Where is God in this mess? Why hasn't God acted for justice? And then Psalms of new orientation are Psalms that I think are kind of like Psalm 40, where the psalmist had waited and waited and waited in a horrible situation near the brink of death when God had pulled him out of the pit. And now, instead of his feet being on slippery slime, his feet were standing on solid ground and his mouth full of a new song. The song of one who had been through the disorientation, perhaps like Jacob, who had wrestled with God and then come out on the other side with a new understanding of God, a renewed hope, a blessing. February is Black History Month, and so this week, as I've been thinking a lot about music, it's been difficult not to think about the influences that African American musicians, their experience, their struggle, their resilience, their defiance, has had on all of the music that we listen to. A few months ago after church, Nate and I were talking about how art and music and poetry are able to transcend divisions in ways that ideas just really never could. So I asked Nate, could you please provide me with a playlist? And he did. And it was so wonderful. A playlist. Wow. Now, none of this music that was on this playlist was part of my typical go-to genre. But as I was sitting with these songs in the playlist, they reminded me of the Psalms. The music on this playlist contained themes of orientation and disorientation and new orientation, of joy and love and anger and pain, struggle and defiance, and hope. Music can be a window into a particular context, an invitation to feel alongside of another, an opportunity to better understand, to empathize with a particular circumstance that is nothing like our own. And yet somehow, even in these vast differences of experience, music helps to forge a connection of common humanity. No matter how different our context, music has a way of connecting themes of love and loss, hardship and resiliency in ways that we can relate to on a heart level. There is power in singing a new song, even if that new song is an old song that's newly rediscovered. In reading the Psalms, I often wonder if all of the new songs we sing are actually old songs rediscovered. I think that this is why the Psalms have been prayed and sung for thousands of years. The Psalms are an honest playlist of the human experience. Listening, singing, making music can be a powerful spiritual practice. In worship, we join our voices together, and this helps us to connect to each other, but it also helps us to connect to something much larger than ourselves. So I wonder, do you have a playlist, kind of a go-to playlist when you are in need of renewal? Do you have a playlist that you go to when you need to just relax or de-stress or reconnect with the divine presence? Music can be a valuable part of a spiritual practice. But as I was reflecting on this and thinking about my playlists on life's journey, I began to realize that probably one of the most valuable playlists that I have is the one that I go to when I am angry. I have a go-to playlist for when I am angry and I just need to kind of get it out. When I have had enough and that the world just kind of threatens to take me under, I happen to listen to Ani DiFranco, preferably in my car, super loud, so that I can sing at the top of my lungs. It gives me an outlet. It helps me to feel solidarity with somebody else who is also in the struggle. This playlist contains her poetic tension of beauty that is found even in the messiest of mess. This playlist helps me not just to vent, but also to embrace the beauty that is found in resistance. The point of this playlist is not to stay angry, but to transform my anger into resistance, into resiliency. And this is not unlike the Psalms. The Psalms are powerful because the psalmists kind of hold God's metaphorical feet to the fire. They do not tolerate a God who thinks or acts in a way that does not honor the well being of humanity. The psalmists are not afraid to question, where is justice? Where is equity? Where is righteousness? And how long do we have to wait? The psalmists are not afraid to bring these questions forcefully and directly to God. I think the Psalms are also beautiful and helpful because they help us to remain porous enough, open and receptive enough to then receive a new song. A resurrection song, a song of healing and justice and redemption, a song of hope. Throughout Epiphany, we've been asking, where is the light? And so I wanted to share something I read this week from Walter Brueggemann, where he was writing about the Psalms and darkness and light. The Psalms issue a mighty protest and invite us into a more honest facing of the darkness. The reason the darkness may be faced and lived in is that even in the darkness, there is one to address. The one to address is in the darkness, but is not simply part of the darkness. Because this one has promised to be in the darkness with us, we find the darkness strangely transformed, not by the power of easy light, but by the power of relentless solidarity. Psalms are a boundary thrown up against self-deception. They do not permit us to ignore and deny the darkness personally or publicly, for that is where new life is given, whether on the third day or by some other uncontrolled schedule at work among us. I thought that was beautiful. We're not looking for the easy light by turning our backs or closing our eyes to what is difficult. Finding light happens by understanding that we are not facing the darkness alone. Throughout Epiphany, we've been looking for ways that we might tune ourselves into the light through spiritual practices. We've considered taking an everyday routine thing that we do and transforming it with just a simple prayer that helps to remind us of our connection with the divine. Music is another powerful practice in nurturing our connection with God as well as with our neighbors. Music is a practice that isn't hard to implement, and it speaks to us on multiple levels that get straight to the heart. The 17th century poet and playwright William Congreve originated the saying, "Music hath the charms to soothe the savage breast," which is often misquoted as beast. But the play goes on to say that music can soften rocks and bend a knotted oak. Music is known to have a powerful effect on our moods, and it literally has the ability to move us. The psalmist proclaimed that God can give us a new song and bring us out of a miry bog. Attention to our music playlists can be a transformative daily spiritual practice. So, if you feel yourself slipping into a dark space, do you have a playlist that points you in the direction of light, that places a new song in your heart? Or perhaps another good question is, what songs are missing from your playlist? What's the danger of our playlist being all praise and no justice, or all protest and no praise? What if our playlist is all struggle and no joy, or all happy and no pain? What songs are missing from your playlist? How might our playlist offer a new song of justice, peace, hope, love, connection, joy, gratitude? So I ask you, what are you listening to? And how does it shape you? Is your heart in need of a new song? Welcome to the conversation.